The ABC News did a small interview with Iolanda Reese. She's the creator of the musical aspect of the museum. And during the museum, inside the museum, they have an interactive touch screen for viewers to play with, play music, look up different people, and that's the part I want to show.
You can pick anybody you want.
Okay, so let's see.
You just search
Jazz.
this touch screen system.
And here are the selections in jazz, and then you can pick anyone from there.
Alright.
And then we've got this piece by Concerto from Cootie, and I'm not sure, we're still in process of getting everything ready for the opening. You'll be able to click on Concerto from Cootie and add it to a playlist, and here's a sample, and then also learn a little bit.
There you go. Party in here.
They can all play together with more stations.
They have music from everyone from Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, Lauryn Hill, all throughout that aspect of the museum. But I do want to start off with what she stated. They asked her, what does she want people to take away from the music part of the museum? And she wants people to take away what music really means in African American culture and lives. Basically saying the background, the struggle from slavery to segregation, civil rights. It all was a story. People use music as a story. It was therapeutic to African Americans to express themselves through music. So that's why it is in this museum. That's why music in African American lives is as important as it is.
Hi, so for it's my person is about fashion and clothing. They don't really have a section dedicated to that, but it's like pieces of clothing that are from pinnacle points in African American history. Leotard from Gap Douglas from her first competitive season. So Lisa had mentioned about the section that they used in. So during the time, it wasn't like common for African Americans to have custom-made pieces by high-end designers. So that's why it's important that these here. So here's a dress. I think this is one is by Diana Foster, and the other one is by Oscar De La Renta. Here's another current kind of article from the ad. This is from the Black Lives Matter. And then lastly, so I thought, okay, well, here's a dress from Michelle Obama. This is what she wore on the 50th anniversary of March on Washington.
Alright, you guys, my name is Shayana Bonner, and I have highlighted the politics portion of the museum. Okay, contrary to popular belief, African Americans' involvement in politics has been prevalent for quite some time. And I chose to highlight 4 different people that you may or may not have heard of, but they pretty much each of them played a role in paving the way for Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, all of them. The first one I'm going to highlight is Shirley Chisholm. So these were a few buttons that were donated from different people. And here's a poster from her candidacy, and that's her up there. Okay, decades before Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton, there was Shirley Chisholm. As the first Black woman to run for president for a major political party, she was years ahead of her time. All right, the next one I'm going to highlight is Julian Bond. You also have prominent figures such as him. He identified as a social activist, leader in the civil rights movement, and also a politician. In 1965, Bond became one of 11 African Americans elected to the Georgia House of Representatives after passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Voting Rights Act of 1965. He was elected for 6 terms in the Georgia Senate, in which he served from 1975 to 1987. During the 1968 presidential election, Bond led an alternate delegation from Georgia to the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, where he became the first African American to have his name entered into nomination as a major party candidate for Vice President of the U.S. Right? The third person I'm going to highlight is Jesse Jackson. In the 1984 election, becoming the second African American after Shirley Chisholm to mount a nationwide campaign for president, and he did so again in 1988. The last person I'm going to highlight is Channing Phillips. Channing Phillips, a civil rights leader and social activist, made history as the first African American placed in nomination for president of the U.S. by a major political party. He was the first African American to receive votes for the presidential nomination at the Democratic National Convention. He is noted for stating that his candidacy was meant to show that the Negro vote must be taken for granted. Must not be taken for granted.
I think, for me, I think it's like a sense of justice and proof that we deserve to be represented in different spaces, and one of those spaces is sports. The patterns of society are often mimicked in the world of sports, and this means that racial tensions that plague our society at that time were heavily reflected in sports also. And it wasn't until like the emergence of like Jackie Robinson in 1947, when he was integrated into the Major League Baseball world, that opened up the narrow minds of those who didn't believe that blacks had a place in sports. And there are other athletes that are highlighted in the museum, like Althea Gibson, she's a gold medals, and they even have like some of the paraphernalia. So Ali was born in the historic city of Louisville, Kentucky, and it's a place where people pride themselves on family, tradition, history, and sports. I would know because I'm also from Louisville, Kentucky. And if there was one of many words that could be used to describe Muhammad Ali, it was definitely revolutionary, because he changed the perception of black athletes in the eyes of the world. He offended people with his devout faith and his choice not to participate in the Vietnam War, and this was because he felt that there was way more problems that needed to be solved on the soil of his home country rather than another country overseas. Ali was smart, intelligent, and witty, and he wasn't afraid to let people know that. When he wasn't dodging jabs and hooks in the ring, he was being featured in discussions about race and religion. There were two things Ali was never ashamed of, and that was his faith in Islam and his blackness. He gained his place in the African American Smithsonian Museum because of his wit, passion, charisma, and daring personality. In the ring and even in real life, Ali was not afraid of anyone. His words packed a punch as hard as his fists, especially when he spoke out about social issues such as racial discrimination. Unfortunately, in America today, racial tensions still are a prominent factor in the regulation of our society, and these tensions are still mirrored on the field of sports today also.
We have a few minutes. There's a couple of videos that I want to show you of the curator that played a very big part historically in the museum, so I'm going to show you that.
Welcome to a very special broadcast of CBS This Morning. We're on the front lawn of the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. A people's journey, a nation's story. That is the mantra that guides this remarkable achievement. The museum sits on the National Mall, next to the Washington Monument. It tells America's story. This is a shared history, no matter your ethnic background.
That is so well said, and believe me, we can't wait to take you inside where everywhere you look, pieces of the past make a stark return, from a Jim Crow era railroad car to a World War II airplane flown by Tuskegee airmen. I mean, I was also struck by the quotes and phrases. There are 487 of them that line the walls, like making a way out of no way. And what they do is they illustrate an important path through our shared history.
It was so important. Remember, Lonnie Bunch told us that he never saw black voices displayed, and he wanted to make sure that that happened here. It's an amazing place. This museum also celebrates triumphs in politics, sports, and entertainment. It took 100 years and more than $500 million to build it. More than 100,000 donors contributed to make it happen. Families all across America donated their heirlooms. You're going to see a lot of them this morning, and we are so excited, with a capital E and exclamation points, to be the first television show to broadcast live from the museum before it opens to the public. So many people thought this can never happen, it can't be done, and here we are.
How honored we are to be here.
I was just thinking that, very honored, yes. Yeah. It has been 100 years in the making. The Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture is about to open its doors to the public.
And the great Lonnie Bunch, that's your new title. The great Lonnie Bunch joins us at the table. Bravo, bravo, Oh, bravo to you.
Thank you.
I've heard you say that it's like taking a cruise ship while building the cruise ship at the very same time to get this stunning structure built.
I mean, I think the reality was that we had nobody when we started, we had a staff of 2, didn't know where the building was going to be, so the notion was we were actually going to make it go and make it up as we go along. So we were
But when you first came, Lonnie, you couldn't even get into your own office. You had to break in. They didn't know who you were.
When I went to where the offices were, the security said, we don't know who you are. And I went down to different offices and they said, we don't know where you are. And finally a maintenance guy drove by and he had a crowbar in his truck. He said, we broke in.
What's wonderful about it is to sit here, and there is the Washington Monument. You're right here, elevated next to the Washington Monument, the president who owned a slave, and you're telling right next door the history of slavery and its connection to us today.
Well, I think that the key is being on the National Mall allows us to make those juxtapositions so that this history is now seen as part of everybody's history, not a separate history.
Lonnie, one of the things about Washington, you can go to different museums, you see a lot of quotes on the walls, but they're mostly from former presidents, white members of the administration. You tried to really address that in this museum.
It was really important to me to realize that often black people didn't get a chance to voice their own opinions. So I really thought it was important to give voice to the anonymous, to let people speak for themselves so that we realize that we're not talking about a mass community, we're talking about individuals who lived and died.
But everybody had an idea about what should be in this museum, how it should be represented. You had many voices in your ear. Tell us about that and how you sorted it all out to get to this.
Well, I think there were a lot of debates. Should it be a Holocaust museum? Everything is really horrible and tough. Should it be a story of famous firsts and positive images? What we did was we spent 2 years going around the country talking to people, just finding out what they knew, what they didn't know. And then I brought the best scholars in and said, okay, tell us what you think. And then I told everybody, go away. And we sat down and we said, this is the story we want. We want to find the tension between resiliency and tragedy. One
One of the most important things you say about here is Emmett Till's coffin.
Emmett Till is obviously the person whose life and death first re-sparked the civil rights movement. And because in Chicago I got to know his mother, I thought it was really important to make sure that her wishes, that the world would see what they did to her son, would be part of this museum. And that's why we accepted the coffin.
And that's why she kept the coffin open.
I think it was the most important thing was for her to say, my son was crucified on the cross of racial injustice. I want the world to know. And she changed the world.